All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Naman Gupta, and I'm the host of Revenue Talks. Revenue Talks is a podcast where I talk with GTM operators, founders, and various other GTM alignment teams to unlock what's really going on into the space. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Shashank Palli with us. Shashank has helped SaaS companies operationalize growth by embedding revenue ops in the heart of the go to market. He has worked across sales, success, strategy, making him a true I would say full stack operator. In this episode, we'll dive into how RevOps can be a growth multiplier when built with intent, from tooling and data and GTM alignment, forecasting systems, and lot more. Whether you are a founder, GTM leader, or an ops professional, this episode could be a good playbook for you to scale the revenue systems. I want to hear more about Shashank's journey first. Shashank, would really love to hear about your childhood. How did you end up in RevOps, and what kept you here?
Well, two questions, right? How was childhood and how did I end up in RevOps? I mean, obviously, like any typical child, I always wanted to be a pilot or a doctor. But then, yes, it is what it is. And RevOps sort of happened for me, I think, close to 5 years ago. But then I've been doing what I've been doing since the last 9 years in terms of CRM, CRP, systems, data, processes, etc. I have, and this is how I like to pitch to people and tell people. I'm a career operations professional. I started my career in plant and production operations with an FMCG company. And that knack of having or building state of the art operating procedures, building architectures at organizations, right, has always been at the core of, say, the way that I've built companies and I've worked at companies. How did RevOps happen? 5 years ago, I pitched a founder saying, hey, guess what? I can build systems. I have a knack for building measurable and scalable processes. If you have problem statements, then I can come in and solve them leading with data. And he brought me in, we started building together. And while doing that, 3 months in, my VP of sales picks me up and says, hey, Palli, what you're doing effectively is called RevOps in my universe. So that's since when I've been calling myself a RevOps professional. And I've never left since. So that's sort of been my journey.
So majorly, Shashank, if I have to summarize, you got into RevOps by chance. It was not planned for you.
Well, yes, absolutely. Yes, I got into RevOps by chance, or rather, I got the title through sheer coincidence, or rather, I went from being a generalist to a specialist. So 5 years ago, I was still looking at roles like chief of staff, generalist, founder's office, etc. This just put like a specialization to say everything that I was already doing in those roles. So yeah.
All right. So what do you think, Shashank? Majorly, I've been talking to various GTM folks like lately. What do you think they miss in RevOps and they understand it too late? What questions or what solutions they should be thinking when they actually start their GTM early on?
Right. Right. When you say you're talking to GTM folks at early stage companies, I'd very much like to assume that this is mostly the founding team, early first members that you hire in GTM, etc. Right. At that stage, and especially in tech companies, right, there's a major, massive focus on product, which is, hey, what are we building, and what problem are we solving, how and what new features are we going to ship to ensure that, hey, our product has an edge over everything else in the market, and that we are shipping the right features that help us book the right kind of revenue. What most executive teams miss out on is, along with, say, your software, your SaaS, or your service as a product, your revenue should also be productized, which means that think about revenue as yet another outcome that your organization has to deliver. It's not just your responsibility, it's sum total of everybody's responsibility. And the moment you think about revenue as a product, right, you start thinking about, hey, to deliver this product, how should I plan it, how should I orchestrate it, how should I operate the right ecosystem to deliver this revenue, what kind of tools, systems, processes, etc. should I be building to ensure that, hey, I get to productize my revenue. And that's like a very key behavioral thought process or mindset that has to be built early on, which is to look at your revenue as yet another product that you're putting out from your organization.
So for somebody who is just start, yeah, can you hear me, Shashank?
Naman, I'm losing you. Naman, I think your network is a wee bit choppy, but could you please repeat the question? Think about it.
Can you hear me now, Shashank?
Hey, Naman. Hi. Naman.
Can you hear me now, Shashank?
I can hear you, Naman, but you're blurred. And I just checked my internet. My internet is pretty solid.
Hey, it's fine. I'll the video would not be have a problem. So
Got it.
even if
Got
you
it.
feel that I'm not able to speak to you, you can continue. In the last,
Got
it'll be all sorted. All right.
it. Got it.
Perfect. So the next is I wanted to ask on the previous question itself. If somebody has to build up or scale their revenue stack, if they are on a let's say 10 million revenue and they are going up to 40 million or 60 million, what will you suggest to them?
Okay, they're already at a 10 million revenue and they're going to 40. They
They
want to
don't have a
4x of ours.
structured RevOps as of now, let's say, and now they have to structure their RevOps better, right?
Correct.
So what do you
Couple of
suggest?
observations here, right? At 10 million, if you do not have structure, right, you already have like a big task on your hands to say bring and rein in all of that chaos, right? Ideally, then you should be okay. So obviously, I'm sure, hey, at that revenue, the intent very much would be to bring in, say, a RevOps professional, somebody senior with the right experience of having scaled an organization, say 4x to 5x from say $10 million. But one of the things that, hey, I'd very much recommend, and this is where I see that there's a whole wide spectrum of different sorts of RevOps professionals that you can work with, right? There are RevOps professionals who have come out of, say, your Freshworks, Chargebee, and the Chennai ecosystem, where they have had the experience of being in a scaled organization and helping them scale further. There have been RevOps professionals who started off very much tactically, became a wee bit strategic, have operated at companies between say a million to 10 million in revenue. For them, they are about to be ready to learn that next step, or to get a little mature in their delivery. My recommendation to a company that wants to fix their GTM operations or their business operations at that scale is going to be very razor sharp and clear on the goals that you want to set for, say, this RevOps professional who's coming in, right? Which is identify, along with it, in a consultative manner, identify what levers are most key and critical to get you out of this ditch in the initial, say, 3 to 4 quarters. For a $10 million company with siloed operations and a little chaos and issues with handoff processes, etc., it is going to take anywhere from 3 to 4 quarters of time only in the cleanup activity. At $10 million, I'm sure you're going to have anywhere from say 10 to 15 odd AEs, assuming that you are, a 100K or a K ACV company. You're going to have 10 to 15 AEs. You're going to have multiple different channels of lead generation and demand generation, and you're going to have an adequately complex product or an onboarding cycle, as well as a retention and an expansion cycle. So at that maturity, and this is exactly how I remember I told one of my ex-founders when he posed a similar problem statement for me. I said, what you're effectively asking of me is like changing a flat tire on a speeding vehicle. So the vehicle is not stopping. You want to keep your business operations ongoing, and what you're effectively asking me is it's running on flat tires and you want me to change while it is still running. So that's a tough ask. Look for a professional who has an experience of being both tactical as well as strategic, right? And because there's going to be a cleanup activity, because there's going to be tactical work over there, one of the things that you can do, which is absolutely a service that you're not doing just to that professional that you're bringing in, but also the organization, is enable them with the right type of team, size of team, and the right ecosystem and the buy-in. RevOps gets its ability to deliver for the organization. It gets its what do you call the it can champion the ability to lead transformation in the organization only when the executive team has the right buy-in. And these are some of the things that, hey, a company that at a $10 million revenue should have to keep in focus. Which is, okay, if I had to summarize, number one, get the right professional who has an experience of cleaning up and scaling an organization. Number two, support them with the right team, hiring, and budgets. And number three, see if you want to probably, not just build a team internally, but also maybe get like an external consultant who's probably had the experience of doing it, right? So these are three things that you could do that will help you accelerate that journey from say 10 million to 50 million.
All right. Okay. So if we go a little back here, Shashank, and we do things better way from the start itself. Let's say I don't have any RevOps planned as of now. So
Hmm.
how will I build a RevOps from zero if
Okay.
I'm just starting off, right? So that in future it becomes scalable. I don't have to do that cleanup again and again, right? And things are better in terms of scale up, in terms of collaboration and all of that.
Got it. What kind of revenue numbers are we talking about here in terms of, say, maturity of the organization which wants to
Let's
build it?
say the company has less than a million right now, and
Let's say,
eventually they are going to scale up to 2 million this year. Next year it will
right.
be 8 and more.
Got it. Got it. There are a couple of ways in which this could be tackled. If I were building that company, then the first way that I'd think about building that would be, and here I'm assuming that it's probably a first time founder with no prior experience of building a B2B or no prior experience of being in a B2B organization. The first thing that I'd do is probably think about bringing in, say, some sort of a external mentor or an external consultant who can help me hire right and who can help me, say, put like a roadmap of how I should be doing my internal business operations, right? If you break down the whole revenue operations proposition, the first step in the whole value chain always starts with, say, a discovery and a road mapping process, which is any RevOps professional comes to into an organization, any operating expert who comes to an organization first is going to baseline where are you at, right? Where are you at? What are your goals? And what could be a typical quarter by quarter roadmap of getting you to your goals, which includes a sum total of, hey, how are we going to map the right processes? What kind of systems are we going to build in short term as well as long term? Like a phased system adoption plan. What metrics or what metrics handbooks are we building? Like key metric definitions that you need to build across all of the GTM customer journeys. And finally, hey, how do you put in place like a revenue planning, tracking, and forecasting process in place? Right? It is definitely not going to be as mature as, say, an organization at, say, 10 plus or 30 plus $1 million in revenue, but it is early blocks of, say, doing like early blocks of doing like a scaled down approach of the same things that you do at, say, a scaled organization, right? So summarizing it, the path with least effort is to go get a expert either as a paid consultant or as, say, a paid mentor to come in and help you with, say, some sort of a road mapping process. See, what you could always like I said, there are two paths to DevOps. There's a strategic aspect of it, and then there is the tactical aspect of it. You can always hire for the tactical aspect of it, which is, hey, I'll go get an agency if I have like a proper roadmap built out. I'll go get like a CRM expert who can double up with, say, some parts of operations and like ideally a lean organization could do with a CRM expert with about, say, anywhere from, say, 2 to 4 years of experience having handled something like a Pipedrive, a HubSpot, or a Salesforce, along with, say, a analyst who helps you with, say, running all the metrics and the KPIs and keeping conscience and running, keeping the organization true north in terms of, say, its operating cadence. So two people is enough from, say, a tactical delivery standpoint, right? But what is it that these two people are going to deliver or going to work on, and how does the organization at its core, the executive team, right, going to put like the right roadmap in place for this? If you don't have the experience of doing it, right, I'd say the quickest, the least effort path is to go get a consultant, somebody who's done it already, right? At that scale, I would definitely not recommend to bring in someone really expensive to own up, say, the operating cadence of the organization. I would be very, very wary of bringing in an agency to solve this problem statement, right? It's tough to get like the right kind of outcomes from an agency,
All right. So next one that I have for you, Shashank, is let's say we are building things from scratch. It's a foundation. Now the company has less than a million of revenue, and they have to build RevOps from the scratch. How do they begin? Where do they actually look? And then from there, how should they go about a system which doesn't break itself when their revenue increases, right? Or if somebody else comes into the future who takes care of revenue ops, it doesn't feel like that things are already broken, right? They can start from where it was left.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. There are a couple of ways that I can think about doing this, right? See, first and foremost, it is really a tough decision to bring in, say, experienced senior RevOps professional at, say, the revenue scale of sub $1 million, right? ARR. Then in that case, let me break this down into, say, two different ways in which, or two different pillars in which, hey, I'll break down this problem statement. The first one is where I assume that, hey, the founders are somewhat experienced. They've been at B2B companies. It's a good mix of, say, founding team where they have, say, some GTM capability as well as they have some tech capability. For such a team, right, which has, say, an internal capability or an understanding of having seen, say, a scaled organization or scaled operations, for them I'd recommend, hey, take about a week or 2 weeks, right? Take a step back from, say, everything that you're doing at this point of time. Identify the goals that you want to get to, right? And break down activities that will lead you to those goals, right? For most organizations, the goals usually are revenue goals or pipeline goals. Break down those revenue or pipeline goals into, say, activities that will lead you to those revenue and pipeline goals. And beyond revenue and pipeline numbers in terms of goals, right, also have goals set around customer experience, SLAs, tats, right? What should be an SLA for, say, a customer response if, say, they are in the sales cycle? What should be an objective handoff process and an SLA between, say, marketing and sales, right? So these are the kind of questions that you should be answering and setting yourself and indexing yourself on setting these KPIs before you actually go ahead and planning out the activities that you want to put in place or the systems and processes that you want to put in place to achieve those goals. So that's one way for, say, a somewhat a mature founding team to go about, say, their business operations. Now the second category, which is where the assumption is that, hey, this is a founding team, probably, hey, they come from maybe a different industry, or maybe they come from, say, maybe the whole founding team is a tech team with little to no experience of doing GTM, right? Then in that case, we live in really interesting times, right? And this is what I've been doing recently, which is, hey, I've gotten one of those Claude GPTs and Geminis, right? I have like a paid subscription to them, and on each of these platforms, right, I've built custom GPTs. Claude has projects, Gemini has gems, right? And what I've done is, for each and every project that I do, I've provided context to them, right? Where I've given adequate context on my current business. For my own business, what I'm doing right now from a GTM perspective is that I've created like this AI context document for my own company, where I've provided it complete context on what my product is, where I am at, what my goals are, what are my current problem statements, what are must haves, what are to be excluded, etc. So give it like complete context and ask it to become like your expert internal consultant for, say, all things RevOps, right? And you'd be amazed, you'd be surprised at, say, what kind of RevOps roadmaps they build for you. And that's where, hey, my 2 cents is going to be, take it with a pinch of salt, right? It's bound to make, say, some errors and some mistakes, right? Once it gives you a roadmap, once it gives you an understanding of, hey, what steps and what actions are going to lead you to your outcomes, right? Then figure out from, say, that whole project plan and that whole roadmap, what is it that you can execute now, what is it that you can execute later. And to do in both of these scenarios, right, my recommendation is going to be, hey, never get your sales team to own CRM, right? That's an absolute no no. Even if, say, it is, say, a junior experienced person with 2 to 4 years of experience operating a CRM, right, get them in, right? That's absolutely number one. And number two, be absolutely, and pardon my French here, be absolutely about measuring each and everything, right? Because as long as you can't measure, your process is probably so. Be absolutely focused on measuring at each step of the customer journey. Have your KPIs and your metrics handbook built out. Your KPI and your metric handbook will also be designed or defined by the AI agent. All you have to do is to prompt it the right way and ask the right questions and ask it to act as your RevOps consultant, and that's what it will do for you. I hope that makes sense.
That does actually. That is a nice thought. That makes things easier for the folks around here. Now, let's talk about tools, Shashank. Tools, workflows, and systems. What do you think a typical stack looks like across CRM, CPQ, or automation?
I have a domain called killthecrm.com. So I am one of those people who very much sees that, hey, Web 2.0 was all these applications that required humans to operate, enter data, and get outcomes out of it, right? And we live in like really interesting times with respect to GTM tech stack. There's so much of consolidation that's happening. There's so much of new tools that are coming in that are promising outcomes. Some of them are delivering, some of them are missing the point. But then in terms of say the core tech stack that you will need for say your operating cadence, right, or to run your b2b, is at the heart of it you will need a system of record, right? So think the system of record could be a CRM, and ideally, hey, the recommendation for the CRM, and the earlier you get the right CRM, the better it would be. And there's a different CRM need for each different kind of an organization. There's a whole new slew of new age CRMs that have come in. Think Atio, think I think there's like an open source CRM which is AI first that is making rounds, which is absolutely Note, I guess, Note or Folk CRM, Folk CRM, right? Which is like very popular right now. But then, hey, I'm a HubSpot champion. I operate in the HubSpot ecosystem. So if you think that, hey, HubSpot is a little expensive for you, then you could start off elsewhere, figure out, hey, what suits your need. But here's what I tell people: HubSpot and Salesforce are an eventuality, are an inevitability. Eventually, you will end up buying them. Eventually, you'll have a team that is experienced only on these platforms. Eventually, you'll have a team that's going to ask for only these CRMs, right? So, like the ultimate, once you've hit that $50 million mark, you even HubSpot is going to find it tough to support you, right? I've built for organizations, and currently I'm building for an organization with $8 billion in revenue in HubSpot. Right? But that said, if I had the option or the choice, I'd probably go out and get a Salesforce, right? But then that said, Salesforce is an inevitability from a CRM standpoint, but to suit your needs, scope the needs of your organization right now, right? So CRM is at the core of all that you do in your GTM, and that becomes your system of it's where all of your data comes and gets dumped, right? Your sales conversations come and get dumped. How many calls you're making, how many emails you're sending, what email are you sending, your email intelligence, your conversation intelligence, right? Your information on account intelligence, right? Everything comes and sits in your CRM. This is where you start beginning to build insights into how your organization is selling, right? Understanding why you're selling and how you're selling is what a CRM enables you to do. And a CRM will enable you to do that only and only when you put the right data and you put the right architecture in place. So that's at the crux of it. The CRM is at the core of it. Outside of, so now that you've established that it's a hub and a spoke model, the CRM is at the center of it, and across the whole spokes, the next most non-negotiable system is a CPQ, right? Most organizations miss out on a CPQ. They end up doing CPQs on email, they end up doing CPQs in Google Sheets. They have all these different pricing structures because they're experimenting early on. That leaves them open to lack of intelligence on what they are selling, what kind of revenue booking are they going to do, what kind of retention revenue can they look at, where can they expand, and all things revenue intelligence just goes out the window, right? The moment you decide to do it over an email or in a Google Sheet. Because then any information, so you cannot ever then build a report that tells you, hey, what is the average discount that you've offered across, say, all of the different tiers of customers that you've had, because your pricing could have changed over time and your discount would have been baselized on say your older pricing. It would become near impossible to grandfather your clients on say an earlier pricing tier and pricing structure, because maybe you just launch your product, you're offering at say a lower price tier and a higher discount, but then eventually once you want to say mature those customers into say a new pricing tier and new structure, lack of intelligence, lack of information on say those old contracts and those old negotiations is going to come back and bite you in ways that you wouldn't imagine, right? So having say some sort of say a systematic method, because if you remember and recall what I told you, revenue is your key second product, and then within revenue, revenue booking, revenue realization, revenue intelligence is like the most key critical part that you can think of while doing while building your revenue architecture, right? And hence get a CRM, get a CPQ. And in terms of CPQ, hey, there are platforms that are dime a dozen. My natural go-to used to be Deal Hub, and recently I've used PandaDoc for a client. And I think we also did like a pilot with Simplify, right, for CPQ, which was like a very seamless way of doing it. But then, long story short, hey, there are adequate tools available. Get one that is future proof and future ready, right? Because some of these tools are built on legacy architectures, It is near impossible to think about say putting like an AI agent who will do half the task for you to generate your CPQ process, or to aid you in say all of that administrative tasks. So yeah, that's the second tool. Outside of that, obviously, hey, you have a plethora of different tools, right? You need sales intelligence tools, you need databases. Clay and Clay similars are an absolute non-negotiable. You need tools like Instantly and Lemlist for all of your outbound orchestration. You need deduplication tools to keep your CRM clean. You need, okay, what am I missing? So we talked about marketing. We need conversation intelligence tools. An amazing use case that I've been seeing recently, and a lot of companies are doing it, is purpose built content generation within conversation intelligence. So think about your sales rep going on to say a customer call. The moment that customer call is recorded and transcribed, right, now this AI agent is creating newer decks, newer use cases, case studies. So this feedback loop between sales to marketing, customer success to marketing, and all of this is becoming seamless and easy with the right conversation intelligence tools, which are an absolute must have in today's world. We talk CPQ, we talk conversation intelligence. Get a proper calling tool. You can never, as a B2B company, you can never shy away from cold calling. It is again an inevitability that, hey, you cannot forever live on just sending LinkedIn messages and emails, right? You will have to call people, you will have to face those situations where they hang up, where they're angry with you and all. But get like a proper calling tool that has a decent connect rate. So calling tools are an absolute must have. Well, I could continue on. I used to manage a budget of $500,000 on tools, so I could keep continuing, but then these are the most important ones that I can think of. I mean, I did not even get into product analytics. I did not get into CS tools. I did not get into CS engagement tools, right? So it's a whole universe. We'll be opening up a Pandora's box.
Yes. Shashank, what about the one workflow that you're most proud of? If you think about your past and you think that this is something that I built and I'm most proud of this, what do you think
Yeah,
that workflow would be?
again, interesting times to live in, right? I cannot be dwelling on what I built a couple of years ago, right? Because we are constantly living in an ecosystem where automations are no longer fancy, they are the norm, and building the right automations is absolutely necessary, key, and critical. So had you asked me this question 2 years ago, I would have cited some workflow that I either built within HubSpot, or I would have built within say a Zapier, or maybe say a third party automation tool, maybe an ETL platform of some sort. But recently, quite recently, and we did this for a client where this client they are in a traditional industry, and they primarily operate through a network of dealers and distributors, right? And you do not have dealers and distributors in your tech databases. You do not have them in say a Zoom Info or an Apollo, right? And the standard process that these guys had was they'd have like, so they were managing 8 different territories in the US, and across all those 8 different territories in the US, they had like a person dedicated to each territory, and their primary job was go to Google Maps, search for a particular keyword, figure out say those locations and pin codes, right? Download, or literally have it in a screen and then type it out in another screen, write it down, and then ingest this data into the CRM and give it off to say the sales rep to go and hunt. That was the market research that these guys were doing, and we automated that whole process using an A10, where we now have market research agents. Now, what we enabled the organization to do is at scale figure out every dealer and distributor from at least 3 different platforms. There's Google Maps, which is one, but outside of that, they had some industry specific magazines and industry specific portals. So we had an AI agent scrape through, say, all of these portals, generate the data, clean up the data, build additional intelligence, not just additional intelligence in terms of, say, where they are located, but also if they have a site, then go into the site, figure out what they sell, what products they carry, what are upsell opportunities, what are cross sell. So giving that account intelligence to say this company using an innate flow, we automated that whole process. It took about 2 months to build this whole thing, but then in terms of effort as well as revenue acceleration gains for the company, right, it was like a crazy automation that we were able to deliver for the organization.
Nice. Actually, I was thinking one day there is a lot of disalignment between cross-functional teams, Shashank, right? So if you talk about GTM alignment, cross-functional alignment, cross-departmental communication, right? Where do you think these handoffs chain? If we just talk about a core problem, handoff between sales, marketing, success, and How do you see this breakdown? Is it often, or is it like some companies are facing this issue? What do you think about this?
I have my job because these issues happen. And I'm reasonably certain that, well, you and I, we had these issues when we were working together. And thankfully my utilities get paid for, and my I get food on my table because these issues exist. You're absolutely right. Cross functional alignment is a massive problem statement when it comes to organizations, and not just across the GTM teams, but across. Think about it this way: sales has budgeted a headcount, and now has to go, talent acquisition has to go deliver that headcount, right? And sales has like a very specific need on what kind of people they want to hire to enable the next step or the next stage of, say, growth for the organization. So these disconnects do not exist only between, say, sales and marketing to on sales to onboarding, and onboarding to customer success. These exist across most departments, and at the crux of it, the underlying root cause can be broken down into, say, three pillars, right? First and foremost is lack of objectivity, which is, hey, lack of objectivity and lack of ownership, which is, hey, till what stage or what point, right, does a particular department own the experience that the customer is going to have with you, right? So it comes down to, say, okay, even before we get to these three pillars, right, the first thing that most organizations miss out is they forget that they have to put the customer at the center of everything. Everything that you do, every activity that you perform, internal, external, engagement, intelligence, everything, right, it by putting that customer at the center of everything, right? So marketing is sending an email, but then sales is also sending an email within, say, 2 hours, both with differentiated conversations, only because marketing and sales never coordinated on the kind of campaigns that they have to run, right? Sales has disqualified something, marketing says it is qualified. It's only because KPIs have not been defined objectively in terms of what is called qualified and what is called unqualified. Onboarding churn happens only because, hey, only if we had a dime for every time people sales sells things and features that aren't built yet, and then onboarding and customer success has to face the brunt of it, and PD has to face the brunt of it, right? So that disconnect happens because of three reasons, right? And let me take one example, right? Your sales to onboarding handoff is broken because you're doing handoff over an email. You're doing handoff over, say, WhatsApp group, right? I'm currently consulting at a company. We're trying to wean them off of using WhatsApp group as a handoff channel for sales to onboarding handover, right? It cannot be tracked, right? You cannot provide an excellent customer experience because at the end of the day, the onus of providing and delivering that customer experience comes down to a human, and no two humans ever operate similar, right? So you would have built processes and you would have baked in methods of customer experience where you have extreme reliance on humans with lack of systems, or adopting the wrong systems, right? I remember very early in my career, we were in one of the companies that I was working at, we were doing a finance process on a ticketing system within Freshdesk, right? You cannot be doing financial document verification and financial process on, say, a ticketing system. It is almost impossible. You cannot build approval flows in it, right? So adopting the wrong tools or not putting the right systems in place, right, and baking in a lot of human dependency in your process is like the first failure point that you will have in this cross department alignment, right? Number two, defining the right KPIs, which is who owns customer onboarding NPS, who owns sales velocity and sales cycle time, right? Who owns onboarding TAT, right? So having these KPIs measured, and not just measured but also owned, right, is absolutely critical and necessary. You'll find that almost 70% of cases that you measure will fall into the KPI targets that you have. It's a balance of that 20 to 30% of cases, right, where they are edge cases, they are not normal sales, they are not your regular straightforward onboardings or straightforward marketing to sales handover, etc., right? And that's where conflicts happen. You will not nail and master your KPIs on day one, right? It will take at least a quarter of time to nail those KPIs, define them, measure them, have ownership, and then keep measuring them. But even after you do all of that, right, you're not going to have 100% of your cases fall into these KPIs. There's going to be edge cases where there needs to be some manual effort, and not everything can be automated. You cannot automate everything. That's another thing that people have to remember, that everything and anything cannot be completely automated, right? So this is failure point number two, which is not having the right KPIs, not having the right SLAs and tags. And the third thing where alignment breaks very much, and it's unfortunate, it's actually unfortunate, but it does exist. It boils down to people, right? Because end of the day, the alignment has to exist between, say, folks in marketing to folks in sales to folks in onboarding, folks in CS, right? It also comes down to the executive team's ability to build the right culture of ownership between, say, these teams, rather than having a culture where teams say, hey, this is not my responsibility. So that sense of passing on the responsibility should be minimized to a large extent, where your team should have that culture of taking ownership of, say, a particular customer experience touch point and delivering that exceptional customer experience, right? So that will enable you to deliver, say, or to minimize all of those issues around handover between multiple teams. So yeah, three pillars: KPIs, processes, and people.
Shashank, we talked about having a good alignment between, like a good handoff between a sales and CS. What tool do you recommend for that?
Sales and CS, what is the outcome that we are looking for? Is it onboarding outcomes? Is it is it customer success outcomes? What outcomes are we talking?
Onboarding. Let's say onboarding at first, right? Onboarding gets translated into support, but that's a later stage. For now, let's only talk about sales to onboarding handover.
Right. Depends on the kind of product that you're dishing out. Onboarding comes in different flavors. Do you have like a really complex onboarding that has multiple different steps requiring different stakeholders to perform different activities with their own SLAs and tags, right? Because think about your onboarding as, say, a project that you have to execute with the client, right? This project will have milestones, it will have tasks, it will have ownerships, it will have SLAs and tags. It will be typically like a Gantt chart, a waterfall chart that you do. There's going to be dependencies on you, there's going to be dependencies on engineering, there's going to be dependencies on clients, there's going to be dependencies on finance, on legal. So there's going to be so many different dependencies. So figure out, hey, how many stakeholders are going to be involved, and how complex is your project going to be. And if you have a really complex project, then get like a proper project management tool, right? Where you can manage all of this onboarding, right? So we talked about people who get engaged, documents, data that gets exchanged, activities that get performed, and finally visibility that you need to provide, right? So do you need an onboarding platform, or do you have you committed to an onboarding where the customer has visibility into the status, the stage, and the progress that is happening on onboarding, right? Did you commit to offering a customer portal where they can see the different tasks that are coming up, what is happening currently, where are the dependencies, etc., right? So depending on that, just go online and search for it, right? There are
Let's
onboarding
say
tools are
it's
diamond.
a high level thought process wherein I just need to transit the data that I have from the sales discussion, sales closure to a manner where it gets delivered to a success team or an onboarding team. What do you think should be the process to that?
It's just a handoff process, is it?
Just a handoff process, no onboarding.
All right. All right. See, invariably at some certain stage, onboarding will require some system where they have to ingest data. If you say that, hey, it is a very simple onboarding where all I need to do is receive the data from sales, hand it over to onboarding, and then just move them through, say, three or four stages and call it a closure, then I'd recommend for like very, very simple onboarding, go and get, say, build custom objects within your CRM, right? That is like the simplest and the most straightforward way where data handoff processes can exist in the most seamless manner. So think about it this way: you could have another module, another object in your HubSpot or your Salesforce portal called onboarding, right? And the moment any deal is moved to closed one in the sales pipeline, right, you can have an automation that says, so first things first, for sales to move it into closed one, you gather like a set of questions, a set of inputs that need to be provided to onboarding. Once that questions get gathered and it gets marked as closed one, immediately a record gets created in the onboarding pipeline, right? The onboarding object saying that, hey, this is a new onboarding. You could have manual routing, you could have automated routing. and you could then take them through, say, the whole onboarding process. You could either build it in a custom object with custom fields and all, or you could even build it using the ticketing system also. And hence I said that hey, it depends on the complexity or the type of onboarding that you want. So that's it.
Okay. All right. So, Shashank, let's talk more about the metrics now. What do you think typical metric should be tracked when we are scaling from 1 million to 10? I know it gets changed a lot as you move up the ladder and you increase your revenue. Let's take a case study of 1 to 10 million. What metrics do you think are important to track? One thing that I mention personally is customer journey, which can tell us many metrics that can be collated from there, which is missing in most of the companies that are there in market today. But what is your
Right.
view on this?
It's a million to 10 million, right? If you're doing any differentiated measurement in your million to 10 million journey than what you did in your 0 to 1 million journey, right? Ideally, what gets added to the mix when you get a little mature is deep performance metrics, right? Which is how are your people performing, right? And how is your pipeline performing, right? And when I say pipeline performance and people performance metrics, it gets more qualitative. For instance, on people metrics, it no longer is only quota attainment, but it is also all the performance metrics that led the person to attain their quotas. So, say for instance, if you have an AE with $1 million quota, right, broken down quarterly into 200K, right, then you get smarter in measuring what activities need to be performed or what inputs need to be provided to this AE to help them achieve, say, their quota, right? In this case, it becomes more proactive, wherein some performance metrics at an individual level that you'll look at is, and it's so 2015 to measure number of activities. Right? You do not measure how many calls have been made or how many emails have been sent, etc. It's so 2015 to do that. But what you'd like to measure is, rather than say an overall conversion rate, you'd like to measure an individual conversion rate. Rather than measure just an overall sales velocity, you'd like to measure sales velocity at an individual level, right? So the thing is, at say that scaling phase, you have the ability, the time, and the infrastructure available to enable you to get granular with how you're measuring things and proactively identify where things could be improved so that you are better with, say, your revenue delivery. So this is on individual metrics. On your pipeline metrics, pipeline performance metrics, right? I think one of the key metrics that starts getting surfaced, conversion rate always is something that companies measure right from day one. The other one that people start measuring is sales velocity, which is, hey, how much of revenue am I moving through my pipeline on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, etc. So that is metric that very much becomes like a north star in terms of, say, sales velocity and pipeline velocity. Another bit that becomes absolutely important, and this is where things start breaking down if alignment is not in place, is coverages, which is marketing is always one sales cycle time ahead of sales. So say for instance, if sales wants to close in June, then their lead should have been delivered in March, assuming a 90-day sales cycle. And this is where a disconnect begins to creep in, and that is where intelligence also comes into the ecosystem and the company, that hey, they need to look at metrics in a differentiated manner both for sales and marketing. And what also changes key and critical is cohorting of metrics, which is you no longer do like average metrics, you look at cohorts. Hey, tell me how has the March cohort evolved? Tell me how does the Q1 cohort evolve, right? What were the activities or what were the initiatives or campaigns that we took for that cohort? And tell me at a campaign level, at a quarterly level, right? How was that particular cohort matured, right? So the metrics more or less stay the same. You're still measuring revenue throughput, you're still measuring sales conversion rate, you're still measuring maybe activities also, right? The underlying base changes, which is how you cohort them and how you bucket them, that starts changing. Because you start think about a metric, right? A metric, usually most companies do is they have like this x and y axis, they have like a two-variate metric, right? What mature companies start doing is they have multivariate measurement, which is, hey, give me sales conversion rate given these conditions for this industry, for this ICP and segment, right? So now they start cohorting, now they start adding more variables, adding more complexity to those equations to understand and make it more granular, right? That is where metric starts getting mature.
Got it. What do you think is the most underlooked or overlooked metric in RevOps?
There's only one answer for that, and this is what I tell people when I pitch to work with them, right? The sum total of everything that I do is to deliver predictability, right? So forecast accuracy, which is an absolute missed metric. Forecast accuracy, which is what was our forecast at the start of the quarter and what is our forecast at the end of the quarter? What is our forecast month on month and how is our forecast evolving? Our forecast accuracy tells you how well you have executed your GTM, right? If your forecast is going ori tadri and all over the place, if you have overachieved your forecast, then you have underplanned. If you have underachieved your forecast, then you have overplanned and underdelivered, right? You should always be hitting. You can't be 70% of forecast and you can't be 120% of forecast, right? In both cases, it's a big red flag. If you hit anywhere from say 90 to 100% of forecast, that's where you would have done your marketing right, you would have done your sales right, everybody is enabled well, your systems are built well, your handoff processes are in place, you're measuring the right things, your activities are planned correctly, your campaigns are running seamlessly. Everything that you do in your GTM activity comes down to forecast accuracy. Are you able to walk into a quarter saying that, hey, I'm going to book $10 million this quarter, and by the end of that quarter you are anywhere in that say 9.5 to $10 million mark? Golden, right? That's the most overlooked metric in RevOps.
How to make sure that happens then, Shashank? What is the sauce?
Definitely build the right team who has the ability to deliver it. But where most organizations falter is enabling that team, which is I want to get there, but I do not have the budgets or I do not have the intent, right? So that is a key critical gap in, and this holds true for most everything that you do at the organization, right? That which is I want to get to a goal, but maybe I have a budgetary constraint, or maybe I have like a skill constraint or an expertise constraint. There's going to be multiple constraints that exist for you to go attain that outcome, right? And what the founding team, the executive team, the head of sales, the head of marketing can absolutely do to get there is, well, number one, hire the right person who can deliver this for you, build the right roadmap, and get it done. But then after that, right, continue supporting it, because unlike sales, unlike marketing, right, what operations has as a key problem statement is late results, long tail results, right? You cannot move a lever in operations today and expect that hey, things are going to change within the next month or so, right? Operations always has a long tail result. Your enablement is going to be slowly adopted, right? Your change management is going to be slowly rolled out. It is there are almost never big bang changes that happen that lead to big bang results. Those things exist in marketing. You could like pull a lever, do a new campaign, something out of the box, and maybe that yields result. This can exist in sales, where hey, maybe you do decide to go chase after like a new ICP, just whales, just enterprises, and maybe that yields results, right? But operations needs patience. If you, again, let me recollect or recall to what I said earlier, I'm a career operations professional, which means that I have to walk the fine thin line between short immediate results versus long term outcomes for the organization, right? And that's something that hey, the executive team can do to ensure that ops is able to deliver that accuracy, that predictability to the organization.
All right. Now, I think I want to just ask you last thing. How is this function evolving, Shashank? And what is the exciting thing that you are currently experimenting upon? The change
Hmm.
or the shift that you are seeing into the space?
A lot of people, or a lot of RevOps professionals who were earlier only tactical, are now becoming more strategic thanks to better tooling and all of the assistance that they are receiving in terms of AI agents doing some really good amount of heavy lifting. That's opening up bandwidth, and that's opening up the ability to do more across the whole function. A lot of professionals who were only strategic planning program managers earlier are now getting tactical and getting their hands dirty with systems, building AI agents, building AI flows, etc., right? Because now things are happening in natural language and things are much more self-explanatory. So earlier when I built teams, I used to have a dedicated tech team. I used to have an analytics team. I used to have a programs team and enablement pod, right? Four pods, four pillars on which RevOps operates, right? It still is the same. It still operates more or less the same, but the lines are getting blurred, which is that my tech folks are also able to and double up with enabling with metrics, right? My programs team don't do just program management, but they are also very hands on with delivering systems and building new AI agents. So how is the function evolving? Just as there's a consolidation happening in tools, what we are seeing is that there is full stack RevOps professionals that are now available with the right skill set to own everything across. And it took me like a good 9 years to. I started with systems, then moved into analytics, then moved into programs and strategy and planning and forecasting and all of that, right? Today, the amount of time it takes to learn each of these pillars and deliver for an organization has constricted massively. So it is reasonably quicker for say a professional to make move into RevOps and then learn the ropes, learn the tricks, and start delivering as the ramp period has come down for full stack RevOps. So that is from a people perspective. From a tech perspective, it is now more essential than ever to, because the space has become massively crowded. It is now become more essential than ever to identify. There are a couple of things that have happened, right? The space has gotten crowded, and even the CFO's purses have become smaller, right? So and because of uh, this whole slew of you know it might be easier to build versus buy sort of a narrative, right? It's getting difficult to make the right choice around tooling, champion it internally, and get it rolled out and adopted quickly, right? So what I'm hearing across the board with a lot of people, friends in the ecosystem who are building their own agentic AI outcomes for all things GTM companies, right? What we are seeing as a problem statement with them is that, hey, at least in terms of say the outcome that they have committed to delivering, they're able to, but hiring or even adopting RevOps as a process or building this as a function, it's no longer that one. I mean, 3 years ago, I still used to tell people that, hey, this is relatively a new function, but it's no longer relatively a new function, right? It's already evolved. There's a lot of consolidation that has happened. Now you have a new function called GTM engineer that either rolls up into RevOps or is a standalone function itself. But then, at least in terms of say organizations building their internal capabilities, it is reasonably easy to do that. Maybe because it's also the availability of these last say 4 or 5 years, there have been a lot more professionals who have been smart and operated in the space and ecosystem, learned quickly, and are now offering extreme skills in delivering this. But then apart from that, hey, even folks like myself, even now with the kind of skills that I have, right, the kind of work that used to take me a whole day now gets done within an hour or 2 hours, right? Could take me a day or 2 days. So it's leading to massive efficiency, and what that is allowing me to do is uh, work with more organizations, support them, and even from an organization perspective, it's easier for them to get like the right talent. This overall.
All right. I think now let's do a rapid fire, Shashank. Super easy. I will give you two options, just select one from them, and then eventually we'll see. All right. We'll go with the first one, forecast or firefight.
Forecast always, but firefight when necessary.
All right. Build versus buy.
Buy, always buy. I would never go down the path of building because you're not in the business of building it.
Metrics or instinct.
Always metrics when you're scaling, but when metrics do not exist, especially for early stage companies under say 100K in revenue, right? Never ignore the instinct, right? Founder instinct is powerful. It becomes myopic as you taste success, but then under that 100K mark, founder instinct is magic. So metrics always. That's my bread and butter. That's how I think. That's how I operate. But then calculated risks and instinct also.
All right. RevOps or BizOps.
BizOps now for me, maybe because of a place where I am at, right? BizOps is like a more overarching theme, which just does not look at GTM organization, org's capability of delivering a revenue and even operations. So BizOps for me at this point of time at the career path that
Okay. And what is the one RevOps myth that you want to kill?
I did marketing and sales. Now I think I've worked on CRM. I know how to operate. So let me just now I'm going to make a move to DevOps. Right. This is the most common narrative that I've heard. I keep hiring for RevOps. I'm currently hiring for one. And I see a lot of GTM professionals actually come in with little to no CRM experience, come and apply. It is not wrong for you to think about coming into RevOps as a function, but then very clearly have that distinction, or that research or that thesis made before you decide to apply and make that career move, which is operations is not like sales, operations is not like marketing. And so there's a reason why you might have loved sales or marketing or chosen it, and this operations will not give you that instant kick of attaining and hitting a target, right? That's a very key differentiator between ops and between sales and marketing. So it's not impossible. You need to come with the right mindset, where if you thought sales gave you rejection, think again, because ops gives you experience of having like a whole different sort of rejection, where you don't know if results are going to come even a few months down the line. And finding out rule, you can do like a win-loss analysis in your pipeline. You can't do a win-loss analysis on your projects, on your ops projects, right? So things are difficult, and it requires a certain type of person to do operations. It's not a myth. It's more like a trend that I'm seeing massively encourage people to move into RevOps. It's just that do your research on what does it mean to be in operations, and if it aligns with the kind of person that you are, right? It has to align with the kind of person that you are, and you should be excited about doing it, right? Or else you'll be vexed with even this, and then you'll move up. So yeah, that's
I think it's the similar in all the business functions. When I was hiring for product managers, people used to apply for APMs, people used to apply for analysts, but they don't understand what exactly a product manager does, right? That is like a very wrong game. People just think that, yeah, I'll easy apply, I will put my resume there, somebody will reach out and I'll get the job. That's that's not how it works. So yeah, all right, guys, that's a wrap. I think we learned a lot from Shashank today. We got to understand how does a blueprint of a whole revenue ops work for early stage companies. How to align GTM across systems, not in a silos, right? And then metrics and frameworks and workflows that actually works. So it was a beautiful session, Shashank. Thanks for being here today.
thanks for
Uh,
having me.
so if you like to connect with Shashank, I will put his LinkedIn into the description. You can connect with him. And this session is powered by Simplify, which is a revenue OS for modern SaaS businesses or software businesses. It helps you to automate your entire revenue lifecycle journey from the time where your proposal gets sent or your customer gets into your platform. So thanks for being here. If you like this, please like, share to your friends and family, and inspire us to do more. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thanks, someone. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.